Hey guys, how you doing? So toss across. This is just a little recap video of how you guys are going to handle this particular assignment, and hopefully it's helpful. And I'm just going to start with a blank screen so we're all on the same page. So hopefully you were able to get the Maya file and the texture map file from my faculty folder. If not, send me a note and I'll put it up on my Dropbox so you can get hold of it. In the meantime, what you're going to do is you're going to open a scene. In my case, it's on my desktop, and it's called Toss Across MA, and I'm going to just open that up. And this brings me to this file right here. If this comes up and these are black or grayed out or something, don't panic. It probably just couldn't find the texture map. As long as you brought it home and it's in the same folder or on your desktop on the computer that you're doing your homework, you'll be fine. I'm going to just show you now how to get that. So all you need to do is you can pick one of these. Doesn't matter, they're all the same. They're sharing the same texture. You're going to right click, go down to the material attributes. That'll open up your attribute editor. And the last tab here is called Blend 2. And you can see where it's orange. In your case, if you're missing this, this is probably black. This first slider over here is called Color. And there's a little black arrow at the end. Normally, if nothing's in there, it's supposed to be in there, it's a black and white checker. But in this case, you're going to tap on that. And in this slot right here, it's looking for a map. It's probably looking in the wrong place for toss underscore map. So what you're going to do is click on the file folder. In my case, it's on my desktop. And I'm just going to click on the name of the file. And there it is. And click open. And at that point, you should be good to go. Alrighty. So I'm going to switch back to the channel editor, and there's tabs on the side that you can get to it there, or you can just Control A, and that kind of flips between the two. And the channel editor is where you're going to be doing your animation, so hopefully that works. And I've closed off all the other channels of these things, so you really can't scale it or rotate it in the wrong direction or move them. So hopefully that's going to make your life a little easier if you're not 100% used to this yet. Just as an example, though, to show you what they look like and how I do that, is the frame, the yellow frame of the object, I didn't close the channels on that yet. So if I click on that, you can see up here where it can be translated, rotated, or scaled, or even made visible or invisible. And the way I make sure that this object's safe is I can actually just left click and drag on all of these channels, and if I right click, I can go down here, and if you look down here it says lock and hide selected, and if I let go there, then this has no channels left and it's safe and there's nothing to animate and you can't do anything wrong. So if you want to do that yourself just for practice, you can. Anyway, so we have the spinners and we showed you them the other day in class, and what you got is one side's got a square and the other side's got a 0 and this side's got an X. Three-sided object, 360 degrees, so a keyframe for each one of these would be at 0, 120, 240, and 360 is the same as 0, so you can just use 0, 120, and 240. Okay? Animation occurs over time, so we're going to need the frame slider down here, and currently when you bring up a default scene in Maya, it only gives you 24 frames, which equals 1 second, 24 frames per second. We're going to need a lot more frames than that. My guess is, and I just started playing with the file before, we just set it to a high number, and then if we don't need it, we don't need it. But let's set it to something high like 400. So let's set it to like 400. Okay, that's almost 20 seconds, but you're not really going to need all of that. It's just nice to have it there. But you'll notice the time slider is still only showing 24 frames, because if you look at this slot here, this is what's actually visible for you to be working, because when you have long animations, often you don't want to see all the frames. So this gives you the ability to work on small chunks of it at a time. But for our purposes, it makes no real difference. So we can just take that and actually go in here, and there you go. There's all 400 frames at one time. If you find that annoying, you can always just drag this down to some more reasonable number, something like 200. So you got 200 frames that you're dealing with there. Okay, so the point of the first exercise was to get 3 matching numbers or X's or O's in a row. Well, currently it looks like the game's over because everything matches. So job 1, let's screw them up a little bit first, okay? In this guy's case, he's an X. I'm going to leave him an X. Doesn't need to be anything other than that. The second one, I'm going to hit 120 up in this rotation channel, and that brings up the 0. This guy will type in 240, and then he becomes squared. All right. We'll just do something like that down here. Just kind of random. You can make him anything you want. Doesn't need to be these. I'm going to make him a square. Actually, you know what? Let's make him a circle. Let's make this. See, I'm not having to think because I'm going to do squares in a row. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this first one. I'll make that. And take this, and I'll make this an X. I'll take this guy, and we'll leave him as an X. That's fine. Make this a circle, so we'll go like that. And then we'll put a square over here, 240. And they could be anything you want. It doesn't make any difference. This can be a circle, and that can be an X. That's fine. So I want to get 3 squares in a row here, so it looks random enough, and I think that'll work just fine. So now that I have all of the spinners set up, I'm only for this animation going to be animating 3, which are going to be these 3. Now I don't want them all to animate at the exact same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start them animating. Kind of like, let's say the first one might start animating, near the first frame, go for 100 frames. Then the second one might go to 200 frames. Then the third one go to like 300 and something frames, and then that would be our animation. Okay. So let's take that first one. When any animation starts, whether it be a walk or whether it be 2 characters playing ball, or in this case these spinners, rarely would you actually want it to start on frame 0. Because by that time you've basically just clicked on the button or clicked on the play button, and it's almost before you move your mouse away, it's already moving. So that's probably not what you want. So in my case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my first frame. I'm not going to let this thing start until about frame 10. So at frame 10, it hasn't moved yet. So I'm going to let this be the very first frame for this object, okay? And what I'll do here is I'm going to give it its first key. So basically it's tap S at frame 10 for this object. I'm going to probably want it to spin up until about like 100 frames, or in this case maybe I don't know, like 105 frames or 110 frames, make life easier. So 110 frames it rotates. And as far as how far it's going to rotate, once again we just got to do a little bit of math. One complete rotation is 360 degrees, okay? So if I had 10 rotations, that would be 3,600 degrees. Well, that's a little fast. I've tested it out. You can test it out, but I found 10 rotations in 4 seconds, a little bit disturbing, a little bit fast. So I cut that in half. And I figured 5 full rotations was plenty. That looked pretty realistic, so I could work with that. So half of 3,600 would be 1,800 degrees, okay? So let's do a real quick test. I'm going to take this up to 1,800 degrees on this frame. So I'm on frame 110, and we take this up to 1,800 degrees, like that. And that's not what I wanted. What I actually want is I want the square. So it's just a little math. If you think about it again, I could easily just do something like this, like that, and kind of figure out where it is going to be exactly. But mathematically, since it's a really simple figure, I can do it that way. Actually, one thing I want to show you really quick. I want these objects to be rotating this way, not this way. Sort of like I want them rotating left to right. And if you look at my rotation X up in this corner, rotating this way, going left to right, is actually a rotation value going down. So that said, what I need to do is actually change this from 1,800 to a minus 1,800. Okay? So then to get it to the square, I'm not adding I'm going to actually go further back negative. So what I'm going to say is I want it to go to negative 1920. And you could just dial it back yourself, but I just happened to do the math, so it made sense. So I'm a frame 110, this object's selected, and now I'm going to hit S. Okay? So now I'll just go back and you can see exactly what that does. So now it rotates in the direction that I want. It slows down, and it's at frame 110, it lands on the square. Now there's a little more I'm probably going to want to do to that, because it just sort of lands and then poof and then locks. And we kind of looked at it the other day where we kind of like settled it into place and it kind of rotated a little bit back and forth. But I'm going to get the basic animation down first. So there's the first one, and that's working out pretty good. That feels like a nice amount of rotation for this thing right out of the gate. So it's and it slows down to the square. Okay. What I'll do then is I'm going to give it like 15 frames, so that takes me to about 120. Okay, and I'm going to say this one, I'm going to hit S. That's going to be its first frame, and I'm going to give it 100 frames. So what I need to do is move my time slider up so I can see the rest of this, and I'm going to take the next key up to 220. So I have the first one going from 10 to 110. Now this one's going to go from 20 to 220. Okay. And as I rotate this one, I want this one to be a square as well. So in that way, to go in the square, I want it, again, if you look at it, moving it forward, it's moving in the negative rotation. So I'm going to take this first to negative 1800. Okay, that gives me the X. I need 120 more. So at that point, I'm going to need this to go to 1920. And there I go. I got my square again, which is good. An alternate way to keyframe is, other than just hitting S, is that I can actually go up here to the channel box. I can highlight the name of the channel, and if I right click, I can actually say key selected. And that's actually a much more preferable way to do your keyframing, and as we move forward, you'll get more used to that than hitting S. Hitting S has a few problems that you may not enjoy. But let's take a quick look at that and see how we're doing. So the first one starts spinning, and then the second one starts spinning. Okay, so they feel a little bit natural, I think, at this point. Seems like it's spinning at a nice rate. What I'll do is I'm going to move this time slider down a little bit, okay, because now I'm going to keyframe this next one. Well, as usual, this last one ended at 120, so I'm going to add in 15 more frames, which will be 235, and I'm going to make 235 the first key for this one. So what I'll do is, in this case, I'm just going to hit S. It's the same thing. I could have as easily went highlighted, rotate C, and said key selected. We're only giving them 100 frames. So I'm going to take my time slider and take my time slider up to 335. Okay, so at 335, we'll take this time slider and I'm going to set this again to negative 1920, and that should bring me up to my square. Okay, and I will highlight and key selected. Alrighty, so now if I hit the rotate button to take a look at what we got, actually it's doing that because now we're in the middle of the animation, but we can go all the way back to the beginning. So there's one, there's two, and there's three. Now you may want your animation to overlap a little bit, or you may want to change out some of the timing for the spinners. This is just a demo, so I figured I'm just going to show you that. The only thing left I want to show you is, as it approaches its number here at, let's say that's first one, and that first one's right here, it settles in at 110, which is okay, but what I'd kind of like it to do is go a little bit further than 110, its rotation, and then come back. So let's say I'm going to go back kind of 25 frames. You're about a second, and I'm going to say we might want this to do something like the very first one, maybe, let's see. sort of rotate it like that, so as if it went a little bit further than we'd anticipate. And so in this case, actually, if 1920 is correct, I'm going to have it animate just a little bit more, maybe 15 degrees more, and say something like that. So what I'll do is at frame 85, I have the object selected. I'll hit S. So what happens now is it rotates a little bit more, and then it slides back. That feels a little bit better, I think. So what I'm going to do then is from 85 at 95, might do something like that. Maybe what we'll do is we'll have it slide even just back just a little bit before it got to 1920. Maybe something like, I don't know, 15 degrees back or something. So maybe like 1905. So you see it's sort of like back a little bit, and actually it feels a little bit much. Maybe something like that. Alright, and now it's selected in the viewport, and I'm going to hit S. And at frame 105, maybe, something like that, we'll just take it and then send it just a little bit like that. And I'm going to hit S to keyframe that, and then at 10 it just settles in. So the feeling you get with it this way, I just think it feels a little bit more natural. See that kind of thing? It just sort of rotates into the place. Because now watch this one. This one just kind of lands in it. That doesn't feel quite as natural. Play the first one again. See how it kind of like settles into place? Now that could probably be slower. That's a matter of timing and animation. I still think that feels fine for the amount of... I mean, the whole animations could start going 30 seconds or a whole minute if we really timed it out really slow. But I think you get the idea. So what I'd like you to do is add that sense to it yourself. And if you're wondering if it feels right or looks right, you can always check in the animation editor. If you remember over here, there's two ways to open it. You can either just go up to the window, down to animation editors, and there's the graph editor. And what you get is you're getting these keys right here. So you get this sort of like kind of that little wiggly sort of a sense to it. So we can go like this, or actually go like this, and then we can expand it this way, or we can expand it this way, so you can kind of get a sense of it like that. So you get this sort of kind of tail wagging kind of a movement in. So that's one way that you can look at it, or if you just want to change the configuration of your view, you can get onto this icon here with the picture of the graph editor in it, and you get that same sort of an effect where you can kind of look at the entire animation, and then you can see it that way, so you can check your values in there. But hopefully that made sense to you guys. And if it really doesn't, then just set the initial keys first, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. But that sense of ease and that sense of weight where things don't rotate in immediately to where they are, they kind of go back and forth. That's where you start to inject a little bit of life into your animation. Alrighty, hopefully this was helpful. So you have two assignments. The first one is get 3 in a row, and it could be 3 down this way, 3 this way. I really don't care. That's your business. And then the next one is I want to see all of them rotating and then land randomly in some sort of cool pattern. It could be all X's here, all O's and squares, or X's and O's and squares, or all O's or all X's or something like that. Alrighty, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Good luck.